have a reconciliation which has certain restrictions on what you can do. The ACA was two bills that one under reconciliation. But what you did in the other bill probably will take some form of regular order, 60 votes in the Senate, to get rid of some of those.
So let me follow up with you, and I know David, or rather John, you're nodding, and we'll talk Obamacare and the 11th hour wrangling that went on then, right? And today, we should also point out, is significant. This is sort of a self-imposed deadline. This is the 7th anniversary of Obamacare, and this is the day they wanted to have this vote. But with regard to Speaker Ryan, I mean, listen, we talk about the House Freedom Caucus is really the thorn in the side of Speaker John Boehner, and people have joked that he's sitting around smoking cigarettes and watching all this somewhere far, far away. Thorn in the side of President Obama. How frustrated is Speaker Ryan with him right now?
Well,
really,
one of the things that Paul said when he came in is, there are a whole bunch of things that happened before I got here. This is a clean slate. I'm just going to work with everybody, and that's what he tries to do. Now, you get to certain times you work and you think you've got some sort of an agreement, and you aren't quite there, and there's other things. That's the detail. Yes, those things happen. Is he frustrated? Probably. But Paul, by and large, is an issue-oriented person who wants to get to the issues and look at them. So he may get frustrated, but he always comes back to what are we actually trying to achieve? How does he want to change from what he sees as a government-oriented healthcare program to a market-oriented doctor-patient relationship program?
Okay.
That's the big goal here. And the two goals that he and Mitch McConnell have for this year are healthcare repeal and replace and getting the tax reform passed. They are burrowed in on getting those two things done this year.
John, just talk us through what this arm twisting, this whole process, what it's like.
Well, look, I mean, it was obviously very difficult for us to work the Affordable Care Act through the Senate.
I mean, there are a lot of parallels.
There are some parallels, but actually there are some big differences. And as David pointed out, we took a lot of time to make sure that our members were educated on what the trade-offs were with healthcare, to make sure that they really understood what would happen with their constituents if we passed the bill. And so in that way, it's really apples and oranges. This thing is being really rushed through. There haven't been any hearings. The bill is changing. Major pieces of the legislation are changing at the last minute. They will not have a final CBO score before it's voted on in the House, so there won't be any understanding of what it will mean for coverage numbers or the costs that are going to be incurred by the American people by this legislation. So it's very different, and in that respect, it was easier for us because people were able to really understand what they were voting on before it came up for them.
Let me just make one comment on that. It's not quite that sui generis. Because Republicans, back when the King-Burwell bill was being decided in the Supreme Court, realized that if King won, they were in a whole new world, and they had to do something. They would have to replace it with legislation. And they did a lot of work at that time, so that was 2 years ago. Last spring, the Republican members of the House had their Better Way effort, and they spent a lot of time, 4 or 5 months, working through the details of some of this. Did they lock down every last detail? No, they did not. But this is not new. There's no Republican member who can say they were surprised by what Paul Ryan came out with. They may not like that it went far enough or as far as they would want to go, but they can't have been surprised because he was involved in both of those, and anybody else who was saw the direction he wanted to go, and the Ways and Means Committee wanted to go, and Energy and Commerce wanted to go. So there has been a little more discussion.
Okay, let me just move off of healthcare briefly, because the other major headline that we've had here out of CNN is thanks to Pam Brown and Shimon and Evan here, and this report. In fact, I'm going to have Pam, you explain it here in just a second, but first I want you to listen to some of the sound. Of course, our own Sarah Murray was asking Sean Spicer about the CNN report that the FBI has information that indicates President Trump associates, language is important, so I'm just looking at my notes, communicated with suspected Russian operatives to possibly coordinate the release of information damaging to Hillary Clinton's campaign. Here's his help.
Say unequivocally that associates.
See, I think this is, with all due, again, yeah. And this is the way that the term associates is flown around. I don't understand what that means. If you're talking about employees of the campaign, employees of the transition, or in the White House, that's one thing. But the way that this term associates gets thrown out, and again, we talked about this yesterday, you pull out a gentleman who was employed by someone for 5 months to talk about a client that he had 10 years ago. No, I can't unequivocally say that nobody ever in his past who may or may not have come in contact with them, who sat next to him at a plane, who grew up with them in grade school, because that's a lot of times associated.
Gentleman, full name for the campaign chairman.
No, I get it, and you're going right now. thank you. I'm well aware of clause. I read it out yesterday. But the point that I'm making is when you use a term like associate and you use all of these subjective terms, there's a reason that you're doing it, which is because you don't have anything concrete. If you do, come back to me and ask, does anyone in the White House? Is anyone in the transition? But when you throw out a vague term like that, it's a catch-all. Can you be certain that no one who works for Time Life Turner has ever done anything illegal? I think that's a pretty broad way of casting a net, that, or who has visited the building. I mean, that's what you're equivocally saying.
Okay, so Pamela Brown, I want to go first to you here. First of all, it was the FBI director who used the word associate.
Those were his words.
Those were his words.
And let me just, I mean, the FBI director would not say Trump campaign associates if it was someone who's just sat next to the president on a plane. I mean, you know, clearly these are people who had a connection to the Trump campaign that was meaningful. I mean, we have reported that Paul Manafort has been under investigation by the FBI and his contacts with Russians, which he denies. We have reported that Michael Flynn, the former national security advisor, is also under FBI investigation, as well as Roger Stone and Carter Page, who the president named to the Washington Post editorial board as a foreign policy advisor. And so all four, by the way, deny that they had these contacts. But it's clear that the strategy here from the White House is to distance itself as much as it can from these people who were known to be under investigation. There could be others. We don't know that, and we're very explicit in our reporting that we don't know that.
Well, is it so? The question that we don't have the answers to is that the C word being collusion, right? So we don't know. But what this begins to indicate, from my understanding of your reporting, is that this would be, them giving the thumbs up to Russia to damage the.
So what? There is a reasonable basis to believe someone could be an agent of a foreign power or a credible allegation. That is what the FBI has to have before it launches an investigation like this. And so what we're told through U.S. officials with knowledge of this investigation is that the FBI has collected records, bank records, travel records,